And a CBS News poll out Wednesday found more Americans are now backing the Russia investigation. There are now more people calling the probe justified, 50%, than think it is politically motivated, 45%. Now, this is a first in CBS News polling. As recently as November, a survey found that a slight majority of Americans felt the Russia investigation was politically motivated. Joining us now is CBS News Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto. Anthony, great to see you back here again talking about the poll. Fascinating stuff. What do you think accounts for the shift in public perception over the special counsel?
Well, those numbers you described at the top have been hovering around that high 40s, 50% line for as long as we've been polling on this question. Is the investigation justified or is it politically motivated? And what we've seen over time now is it shift a little bit, as you described, to more people saying that it's justified. That shift is actually coming from Democrats, some of whom were calling it politically motivated before, but less so now. So what we've really seen is an even more hardening of partisan lines, as if you could imagine it becoming more so.
Yeah, is that possible at this point?
I know.
And to your point, though, more Democrats are calling for continued probe, on very different aspects of the Mueller investigation. Where do Americans stand on this?
Well, interestingly, when we ask what should the Democratic Congress focus on and give people a choice, their own agenda or investigating the president, now Americans say try passing their own agenda. And even a majority of Democrats say focus on their own agenda, the Democrats' own agenda, more so than investigating the president. I read part of this as, in politics, we often see people calling for the two sides to get along and also for Congress to do something. And it's perhaps not surprising that coming out of the last election, where a lot of the Democratic votes came from people who cited issues like health care, cited issues like, taxes, et cetera, that you would get that kind of response to say work on their own agenda.
Now, Anthony, recently we saw, President Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, walk back comments he had previously made that there was no collusion between anyone on the Trump campaign team and Russia. Now he's sort of saying, I can't speak for every single person on the team. I don't know what every single person was doing. I can only speak for the president, which is a departure from what he'd said before. What is your take on how Americans see the issue of collusion?
So we asked folks if the president, they thought, from what they've seen and heard, if the president's handling of the investigation had involved doing something wrong or not doing something wrong, handling it appropriately. And what you find here again is large partisan splits, where Republicans very strongly say they feel the president hasn't done anything wrong, and Democrats feeling that he has. So
does that
even
carry
as this goes
through
forward,
to their perception of his advisors and people on the campaign team, not necessarily the president?
It does for Democrats and for a large number of independents. So you see how partisanship becomes a filter in this, but when asked if the president's advisors may have had improper dealings with Russia before the president got elected, here again you find Democrats saying that they feel that, in fact, he did. So there's these different measures handling the investigation now, what may or may not have happened prior to the election. And one of the reasons we see those partisan filters is that this is complicated stuff. Sure. It's complicated to poll on. There's a lot of different questions. People have oftentimes need to really dive in to see what's going on. And when that happens, they often fall back to partisan positions because it becomes a shortcut through all of it.
One of the most interesting takeaways, though, from all of this is that even though more Americans are saying the probe is justified, they're also saying, let's just get to the issues and let's, have Democrats pursue their agenda, right?
Yeah, I read the responses as a question of priorities, right? We didn't ask should they not. We asked what should they prioritize, what do they focus on?
Right.
And that's in keeping. Look, even when you and I we've talked before about the shutdown and polling on that, where people say just get along, just get things done. It echoes some of that.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because what is your polling saying Americans want to see the president and Congress do next when it comes to the shutdown?
Basically end the shutdown. But the way it works out is, neither side wants their side to give in. Let's say that up front. A majority of Democrats say don't fund the wall. A majority of Republicans come out and say don't sign a budget, Mr. President, without the wall funding. But you add all of that up, and they say that the shutdown isn't worth the wall isn't worth shutting down the government for. And overall, the aggregate numbers are that they want both sides to give something up.
Get the job done, Congress, right? That's all they want. Anthony Salvanto, thank you so much for coming to talk to us.
Thanks, Tanya.